Brantford Mayor Kevin Davis is back to talk about what's happening around his city. Thank you so much for being here, Mayor Davis. And you're wearing a Bulldogs sweater. Playoffs start today. What's the feeling?
The first game of the first round is tonight in Brantford at 7 o'clock. The city is very excited because, of course, the Bulldogs came in first in the Eastern Conference. And we're hoping they're going to go long and far into the playoffs, so very exciting. And
you mentioned a little bit about some of the opening events that you're a part of today. What's that going to be like?
Yeah, so the owners are doing what they call a tailgate party outside the Civic Center, and they're bringing in a car that they painted North Bay Battalion green with North Bay Battalion insignias on it, and I think I get to hold the first sledgehammer to it.
Very exciting.
Very exciting.
Very exciting. We can't wait to hear about that. Brian's giggling over there. Yeah. Okay, let's get into a little bit more about what the city is focusing on. The Woodland Cultural Center, there was the Capital Build project that you guys are a part of. Talk to us a little bit about the significance of this.
Yeah, so this is a property that's owned by Six Nations. It's part of the Six Nations Reserve, but it's actually in the city of Brantford, within the city boundaries. And it's the site of the Mohawk Residential School, which is only 3 of the surviving residential schools in Canada. And it's being converted into a museum, which opens in September. But also attached to it is the Woodland Cultural Center Museum, which celebrates the stories, the history, and the culture of the Haudenosaunee people, which in colonial times they referred to as the Iroquois. And it's a fantastic museum. The displays are very educational and informative, but the problem is it's inside a gymnasium that was attached to the old Mohawk Residential School, built in the 1950s, and it just is not appropriate. It doesn't do the display and the collection justice. They also have the largest selection of First Nation archaeological artifacts stored there. So there is a proposal to rebuild the museum. It's very exciting. It's going to be a space for cultural exchange, cultural understanding, properly displaying all of the museum artifacts. And the request was that the city match the contribution made by Six Nations elected of $1 million. And this week, council almost unanimously made a final decision to contribute $1 million.
That's
and
great.
It's going to bring visitors from all over the world to Brantford.
And you were also mentioning how a lot of Indigenous leaders were also involved in the creation of this. So this is it's a big step for sure to be involved.
It's not just celebrating the culture of the Six Nations, but the Haudenosaunee people. And they're First Nations, Haudenosaunee, right from Cornwall right through to London and down, of course, into upper New York State. It's a fascinating history, and it will also promote cultural understanding as well.
Okay, also another topic that we're focusing on, the city's looking to declare food insecurity emergency there. What is the status on that?
Well, it's really driven by 2 things. One, the rates paid under Ontario Works and ODSP. I can't imagine how anybody lives on what is being paid for ODSP and Ontario Works. So part of it was advocating for an increase in the amounts paid for Ontario Works and ODSP. The other part of it has to do with food security, and in particular, how do we, as a community, better meet the food insecurity needs of many of our residents. Of course, we have a food bank. We have many religious organizations that do have food programs, and so part of it is how do we better coordinate those services, and how do we better help and assist those organizations so that we don't have a food insecurity issue in Brantford. And of course, with the looming, tariff situation, which likely will result in an economic downturn, I think it really is very appropriate in the timing.
And you just touched on one of the questions I was going to ask you last, but in the U.S. we're seeing additional tariffs coming from there. They're also going to be in place April 2nd. How does this affect Brantford?
Yeah, it's going to affect Brantford, no question. It's going to hurt Brantford. We're not quite as vulnerable as communities like Cambridge, London, Windsor, because we don't have an auto assembly plant. We don't have auto parts assembly is not a big part of our local economy, but we do have a lot of food ag producers, and most of what they produce goes to the States. So many of them are vulnerable. We struck a committee, I used strong mayor powers back in February to strike a working group to look at the tariff situation, expecting that the tariffs were going to be imposed, and pretty clear they're going to be. And we've already developed a strategy to deal with it initially, which a lot of that involves many municipalities doing the local procurement. But we're also refining that strategy to better protect Brantford and better position ourselves, because there are going to be opportunities in this economic downturn, and we in Brantford are going to take advantage of that.
All right, well, Mayor Kevin Davis, thank you so much for being on here for this update. And you did bring some local pretzels that we were going to share for sure in our newsroom. We'll have those details up on our website, but we will have that for you a little bit later.
Well, can I express some sympathy for other mayors?
We do have to get going, but thank you so much. We'll have those details up on our website at chch.com/morninglive.
You did.